Hi, welcome to the overview of the state sales data case. So in this case, the first thing you should do before you start any case is to review the memo. So here in the memo looks like we have 7 steps. 1, to remove duplicates. 2, to separate a number series into different, 4 different 3-digit segments. Use the VLOOKUP function to combine product code and product code name, product territory area. Insert a pivot table to configure by product code. Insert another pivot table by territory. And then finally draft the executive summary for sales costs and units, analyzing sales costs and units for product code and territory. Include charts to display your data. Okay, so that's basically what it's asking. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I always want to start by creating a new tab at the beginning and call that executive summary. And then I can insert, let me just start by inserting a text box here just to get that started. So this is going to be my executive summary, and that should always be placed in the first position. The memo, I usually like to drag that memo to the end. So I'm going to be working with sales data and index. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just do a little formatting here to clean the page up. Let me just make this. So here I could change my views from, this is the print area is terrible. So you can see that the print area is not set up. So go back to the grid. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up the titles. I'm going to, okay, they're already centered. So I'm just going to add, let me add some boxes or some borders, and maybe I'll add a little color to kind of make that look, that looks a lot better. Then I'm going to format, so here I have dollars. These two are in dollars, so I'm going to format this as currency. Always use currency for finance. Units, I'm going to use the comma. Don't need the zeros. I'm going to resize the columns. Okay, so that's a lot cleaner. And then I'm going to also go to a view. I always want to freeze the top row so it's always visible. And then I want to set the print area. So let me highlight the whole area. And I'm going to say insert. I'm going to go to home. Oh, page layout. Okay, so I'm going to click on print area. So I'm going to include this as my print area. Set the print area. And then I'm going to do a page setup. And I'm going to, portrait seems about the best. I'm going to reduce the size of it a little bit. Let's see, I'm going to reduce my margins a little bit. Include a header and a footer. A footer, I'm going to put a prepared by me and a page number. The header, I'm just going to put a page on the header. And sheet, rows to repeat at the top. So I'm going to click this row to repeat at the top. All right, so I'm going to say OK. And now when I do this preview button here, now I could do this preview and I could see how the pages are set up. So it looks, I'd have to say it looks pretty good. The print ranges are now set up. So go back to the grid view and I'm going to do the same thing for the index here. So here it seems like I have an extra column for nothing. I'm going to delete that column and take a little shortcut. I'm going to highlight this here. Let me just highlight a couple cells here, home. I'm going to hit this little paint brush and I'm just going to quickly paint this to be a similar. This now becomes a similar heading style. Let me put the borders in. Just going to leave it with like that, and let me highlight this. I'm going to align everything right here. This I want centered. Okay, so and then of course I want to freeze the top row. So that's nice there. And then I can also hit Control A to highlight the area. and then I could go again into page layout, set my print area. I go to the page setup, rows to repeat at the top, hit my top row, I want that to repeat. And let's see, that's the sheet on the page. Portrait's fine, I'll just reduce it a little bit. Margins, I like to shrink the header. Here I'll just put a footer. The header I'll actually put the name of the document. The sheet. That looks good, okay. And again, you could hit this, we'll preview. Okay. So here I'll preview and you see that it's not looking, actually it only really needs to be one page. So I'm going to go to page setup again, and I'm going to say fit to one page. All right. All right. So that looks a lot better. Okay. So now that that sort of little formatting work is out of the way, I could go back now and look at the memo to see what I need to do. First thing, step 1, remove duplicate rows in the sales data. So duplicate sales dollars. So this sometimes happens that maybe 2 different sales dollars are entered as a duplicate. Whatever the reason is, I'm going to Control A to select the area. I'm going to go to Data and remove duplicates. Unselect all the columns. Unselect all the columns. I want column C. So I only want to remove duplicates in column C. And it turns out about 49 duplicates. Now, if your number is slightly different than mine, 50, 51, 48, it's because I do change the data in these files to make sure if anybody is plagiarizing or copying from other students, I know right away. So if you don't be too concerned if the numbers in your spreadsheet are different than another student in class, is that sometimes I do put little tricks in there and change it up to make sure people aren't just copying from each other. Just a fair warning. Okay. So, let's see, next step, separate the product code into different sections. Okay, so here's the product code. Let me open up 3 new columns. And I'm going to, let me take that off. I'm going to go on column B and text the columns. And there's 2 formats here, delimited or fixed width. Fixed width is if there was sort of, delimited would be if there was a comma or semicolon or space I wanted to utilize as a border, as a breaking point. But here I don't have that, so I'm going to do fixed width. And then I'm going to actually select, I can put these arrows in at every 3 positions. So I just click and I can move them around. If I double click, again, I could delete it, reinsert it. So now I've broken it up into 4 columns of 3 digits each. So I'm going to finish that. Okay, so now I have those 4 columns. I'm going to label this 1, 2, 3, position 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. And let me, if I highlight the area and double click, when this turns into a dual-sided arrow, I double click, I can right size the columns very quickly. Okay. Memo, step 3, use VLOOKUP to combine product code and product code name. Okay, so here's the product code name, and so index. So here's the product code, that's position 4, 5, 6, and territory is 10, 11, 12. So I'm going to actually copy this. This is going to link up. 4, 5, 6 is the product code. And then the territory, 10, 11, 12. So here I have position 10, 11, 12. That's actually the product territory. So let me put those in. So it doesn't appear that I need 1, 2, 3. So I don't want to delete that data in case maybe I do need it later. I'm just going to hide the column. So it makes it a little bit cleaner. Hide those columns. Okay. So now if I want to link up the product code name, I could use this function. So I'm going to go formulas, insert function, and I'm going to search for VLOOKUP. I already have it in my most used list, and I'm going to select what area, lookup value. So here's the lookup value is the product code. So I select that column. The table array, I'm going to go into the index. So product code, and I'm trying to pull in the product code name. So that's, I only need columns A and B here. And I want the name, so I'm going to set column 2. So this is A is 1, B is 2 in this circumstance. So 2, and then you put in false if you wanted to return an exact match. Okay, so good, that's what I want. And I could, when this plus turns into a white plus to a black plus, I could double click and just launch that VLOOKUP all the way to the bottom of the column, which is important because if you don't know your quick keys, there's almost 6,000 lines in the spreadsheet. So if you don't know how to get around the spreadsheet quickly, if you're hitting page down, take some time to investigate the quick keys so you know how to maneuver around the spreadsheet fast. And that's in, if you look in the, there's an a free Excel textbook with the course that goes over all the different shortcut keys. Okay, so now I want to do the same thing for product territory area. I want to do a VLOOKUP. So I'm going to click on VLOOKUP again. Product territory, now I want to call column E is going to be my lookup value. And I'm going to match that to the table array is going to start at C now, column C and D. So it's going to match in C and retrieve D. So if I have to tell column 2 to say to retrieve D, and then I want false. Okay. All right, so Alaska, I'll copy that down. So I have my states in there as my product territories. All right, so now go back to the memo. Done, 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 and done. Okay, now they want me to insert, it looks like it wants me to insert 2 pivot tables. Generally, you only need 1 pivot table, but I am asking you to insert 2 different pivot tables so I can review how you configured them later. So typically, when you're working on an Excel file, you only need 1 pivot table because you can multi-sort and multi-stage that 1 pivot table to output various amounts of data and cut and paste that data to another worksheet to manipulate later. Now, because I want to see both of your pivot tables, you're gonna create 2 different pivot tables. So I'm just gonna go to the sales data because it's saying to use the sales data worksheet. So I'm going to hit my Control A to highlight the whole area. I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to insert a pivot table. And I'm going to rename this pivot table. I'm going to rename this. It's going to say name pivot table. Okay, I'm going to go back to the sales data, and I'm going to insert another pivot table. While I'm at it, and I'm going to rename this state pivot table. Okay. All right. So now let's go back to the memo. They want me to use these pivot tables to configure one on product code and one on territory. Okay, so I'm going to rename this. This will be code pivot table, and then over here territory pivot code. Why? Because that's what they're asking here in the memo. So I want to make it as easy as possible for the person grading this, which would be me, to see exactly what I'm doing. So I know that this is the product code pivot table I asked for, and then this is the territory pivot table I asked for. So we have those 2 set up. So now let's configure it for sales, sales cost, and units by product code. Okay, so let's come back here. And I'm going to put a little color. I'm going to add a little color to some of these tabs. So if I right click, and you'll see, if you go down, there'll be this tab color. You might not be able to see in this video, but I'm just going to color these tabs just to add a little professionalism to the sheet. And the executive summary as well. Okay. I don't like that color. I don't like that color. Okay, I'll make that red. All right, so let's go back. So here we have the product code. So let me close my function formula builder box. I'll click on the pivot table here, and it'll open up my pivot table fields. So the first field I want is, let's see, we'll do product code, but I'm going to put this over here. So here are my product codes, and they want me to put in sales, cost, and units. So I have the sum. Now, if this ever doesn't, if you wanted to count, you can right-click, and then we'll say field settings, and then you could do count, sum, average, min, max. A lot of different field settings you could do here when you right-click on these to modify them. Okay. Okay, so here I have, now I'm going to format these. So these first two are going to be in currency, and this last one is units. Get rid of the change. Okay. So now we have our product codes. We have our sales dollars, units, cost, and units. So let me go over here to territory, and I can do the same thing, but now I'm going to select product territory, put that over here, and add sales dollars, costs, and units. Actually, I want what I want is, let me put this over here. Let me uncheck. That's better. That's what I really want. And I guess over here too, I don't want the code name. So let me take off the code name. What I want is the product code name here. Because this one is product code. I want the actual name. Okay, so that's better. I'm going to highlight these, see if I could copy the formatting over here. I can, so it makes it a lot quicker, this quick formatting tool. So now I have the actual territory, which are states, and I have the product codes, which are product names. Okay, so that's how I want to do it. So now over here it says on the memo, last thing to do is to draft an executive summary. Okay. So in the executive summary, 2 would be the CFO. From would be your student name. Subject, state sales data. Okay. Now let's move this font up to, let's say, 12. Make this Times New Roman. Is a very professional. Let's see. Here we go. Times New Roman is a very professional font. Let's just make this area a little bit bigger. And then the first thing, we're gonna break this executive summary up into introduction, and then financial analysis, and then recommendation. And remember, it has some tools like Word. So if you go to review, there's also a spell checker in here. So if I spelled something wrong, I could double click on that and fix it. So always do your spell check after you've completed your whatever you write. Okay, let's go back to, let's put some charts together first, because it helps tell a story. So here on this table, I'm just going to say, let me rename this title sales dollars. Okay, so it already says, let me just say sales, and then we'll say costs, unit. All right. And let me just center this. Okay. So now, if you're going to insert a table, they do have, if you go to, for pivot tables only, they do have a special pivot chart that you can insert, which is automatically going to look at this data and insert it. So now, I don't really like this chart, so I'm going to let's make this a little bit bigger. We'll close this pivot field here. So this is the recommended chart they gave you, which really, I don't like it. So what I could do is I could change the chart type. So maybe I want a line chart, like that. If that doesn't work, I can change it to perhaps a pie chart. So far, none of these are that great. So let's go back to we'll go back to a column chart, and we'll do a stacked column. I don't want that pie chart in there, so let's get rid of that pie chart. Okay. Let's go back to column, and I want to let's do a stacked column. Okay. And then, so that's a little, maybe that's a little bit better because it's showing here the sales, the costs, and the units. So I could right click, and I'm going to select on, let's see, format data series. And I could change, keep them, maybe make the gaps a little bit wider on this. Maybe that'll look a little bit better. So you can do all sorts of formatting to change things around, put in borders, remove borders. Let's see, cost, units. Let's see, there are other, let's see what else I want to do. So there is a bunch of different things you can change around in the format of the chart. And these are things that you'll learn as the class goes by. So maybe we'll make the minimum here 2 million. You'll see how that's changing the scale to 2 million here. Maybe I'll do this as I'll go to 3 million on this scale. Nope, still not liking that. So maybe I'll go 5 million. Okay, so now it's starting at 5 million. So it, but you see it's wiping out one of the series. So you can see that, okay, that is no good because one series is so small, 5 million. So this is sort of a give and take when you're playing around with the sizes. Go back to 2. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is just one chart. Now maybe one of these series here, units, I want to change this and I just want to say, make this a line. So now I have sales and costs, and then I have a line for units. The chart looks a little bit better, I guess. And this is something I could just, I might want to put a title on this chart. So I could go to design, and I could say add chart element if I want to maybe make a chart title above the chart. And I could say, just a text box opens up. I can say state. Areas. All right, so make a little title there. I can make the font on that bigger. So this little A, maybe I could color it. I don't want to color it though. Okay, so I'll leave that. And then if I highlight the chart and I hit Control C, I can bring it over to the executive summary. And generally, I suggest placing these charts. Oops, I lost it. Control C. Copy the chart, and then Control V, paste the chart here. Now you don't have to use that exact same chart. I'm just kind of, and you can leave this chart in the pivot table, that's fine. Now let's go to the other pivot table. Now here, it's a lot of data here, so I'm not quite sure what chart to use, but I could go to, let's see, okay, so if we go to the, here's the pivot chart button again. I can even add an extra field if I wanted to, but we're not going to go that far just yet. So let me add a pivot table, pivot chart. So this is the chart it gives me, which is terrible, terrible chart. So I see a lot of students sometimes just using the first chart offered with no manipulation, no fine tuning of the chart. So that would be, this chart is basically useless. So maybe if I change the chart type, so maybe I'll change it to this type. All right. So that didn't work out well. Let's see, change. Could try a combo chart. Okay, so this combo chart actually doesn't look too bad if, let me see. I could play around with maybe these bars. I can make the axis a little bit thicker on them or a little skinnier. It looks like there's, okay. And then you can also, you see this is taking up some room here. So I could say format legend, and I could say let's put this at the bottom. So that gives a little bit more room for the chart. I'll stretch the chart out a little bit. Okay. So then this chart tells a little bit better story here. And maybe I could reform the axis here a little bit. I'm not sure if I want to change any of that. Text options. No, okay, I think this is all pretty good on those. All right. Okay, so that's one chart. But maybe I'll make another chart, and I'll just make this second chart. I'll highlight this area, and I'm just going to make it sales dollars. So I can go to insert, and here I could just hit a regular chart. So there's this recommended button, which I'm not going to use. Let's try a clustered column. No, that does not look good. Undo that. Let's go back to insert chart, and we'll just do a line chart. Okay, so here we have, actually, it's selecting everything. So I want to highlight, right click, format data series. Yep. Let's see. Select data. So here, let me take out, I want to go here, and I can actually move this. Let's see, is it blocked out? 0 between gaps, switch column and row. So I could do a little bit of manipulation in here, but I don't think that looks better either. So I'm going to delete that chart entirely. So the chart is very much, you're kind of hit and miss as you're playing with this. Let's see. Let me just go back to where it was. Okay. So let me delete that chart. Okay. So I'm going to select the data again. Let me try again here. So a pie chart would not be good when you have this big of amount of data. Usually, let me try if I could do, okay, it won't work with this grouping. Okay, yep, and that chart doesn't look good either. So one of the drawbacks here of a pivot table is sometimes it keeps grabbing, even though I'm selecting just one column, it's trying to grab all the pivot table data. So what you could do is you could also take the data from the pivot table if you wanted to. Sorry, let me just hit Control A to select the data from the pivot table. I can copy this. I can go to a separate blank page over here, and I can right click, paste special, and I'm just going to paste values. And then I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to paste special formatting. Okay, so now now the pivot table is gone here. There's no more pivot table. So if I just want to say, rename this product, and then sales. Again, I can just highlight these two columns, and now I won't have the limitations on the pivot table, because it's going to be free of the pivot table and the pivot table chart. So I can insert a chart now that I want without having all the other data interference. So here's just a straight sales chart that I can copy this, move it to the executive summary. And as you go through the training and some of the videos on charting, you're going to be able to make much better charts as this goes through. So maybe I want to make a chart that's just going to be product sales and then cost. So I could highlight that, insert, and maybe I'll try this. Okay, that does not look good. That would actually work better with just sales. So this is a different type of chart, which I think it actually would look better. Let me do the territories. So I'm going to bring the territories over to this page. So I'm going to copy this, and let me rename this chart data. And I'll paste special. Now I can also paste values and source formatting. So I think I lost the copy, paste special. I want values and number formatting. Okay, so here if I do state and sales, I could do that chart. I like this chart here, which is okay. And this chart would be proportional. It looks like the amount of money is a little too similar here to really to make too different. But if I was to try to change this, say I made this 14 and this 1 million. Now you see how this chart changes based on size of the amount. This is all too very similar here. So I could, but this is a nice chart to kind of see the size, the value of sales in each of the states. And I could rename this state sales. Right. And then I could format the legend. Maybe I want this on the right. Move this over. Maybe I want this a little bit bigger. So this is a hypothetical chart. I just changed the numbers to make it look a little bit better. Obviously, I don't want you changing numbers to make charts look better, but this is just to give some examples of different types of charts you can put together. And every executive summary should have a minimum 3 different charts on the executive summary. Okay, so here I created 3 different charts. And as you get better with these charts, you'll be able to do more type of formatting that will make the chart look a lot more visually pleasing. So let's see here. So there's a bunch of different solid fill, and we could change the color of the solid fill. Maybe we want to make this green, and then color of the line, maybe we want to make that black. Take that transparency out. All right, so this is just some so I can change it to black. Maybe I make the width a little thicker. Okay. So I'm just playing around here, but you can see that there's a lot that you can do to make this more attractive. So I'm not saying that this is the best looking chart, but I'm just saying there are things you can do to make it look a little pop a little bit, make it look a little bit different. And as the class goes on, I'm going to look for you to be a little bit creative with the charts and make them stand out a little bit more. Okay, so now that the chart is done, so we have this has been, of course, we got to go back and let's freeze the panes here. Freeze the top row rather on this. We want to Control A, set the print area, page layout. Let's set the print area. We can even do a page setup, and we should add probably a footer or a header. I think I went over this before. Okay, so this is the index page, sales data. Should always, so when we're viewing it, we don't want to lose these titles, so we want to go to under View, freeze the top row, so that's set. Control A, highlight the area. On the page layout, I want to set the print area. I can also set the, I want to save my work. Make sure you hit your disk to save. I also want to, let me fix the titles here. I'll make sure that they look good. Okay. So even on these pages, I'll highlight an area and I'll set a print area. And I can click down here to see a print preview. And you'll see that it's kind of set on two different pages. So I'm going to do page setup, and I'm going to do sheet. Let's put this on page. Let's do this. Try this landscape fit to one page. Okay. And now I have everything on one page. Put that page set up again. Yeah. And let's just adjust the margins a little bit. Okay. So now we're fitting to one page on those charts, and I'll do the same thing here. And this is just why should you be so worried about making sure everything fits to one page? Well, you don't want anybody hitting print on any of your workbooks and then printing out 500 pages. So if you don't set the print area, that could happen. And then you can, if it doesn't quite fit, you can do landscape or portrait. You can shrink the size of it. So that way, when you do the view, you can see that it's going to fit to the pages better. So these are just formatting things that you want to do on each of these pages, because I'm going to be looking to see that you set those up properly. And go back, let's go back to the grid layout. Okay, so the executive summary. Now we have our nice charts here that tell a story. So now we have to fill out the rest of the executive summary. So if you look on Blackboard, I have some student examples of some executive summaries that you can look at. But basically, the introduction is you want to reiterate what you're doing here. So you want to talk about, you were given territorial and state level and product level sales data, and you organized it using pivot tables and formatted the data and created some charts. Just a little introduction to exactly what you got originally and what you did, how you manipulated that data, and what Excel functions or formulas you use to organize or tell a story with that data. Then the financial analysis, and the introduction should be a paragraph or two. The financial analysis should be your longest section, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs, and your recommendation should be a lengthy paragraph. So in the financial analysis here, you would make some statements. So you would say, looking at the data, so if we go back to, I'm just going to put this chart data back here. So if we look at the product, here we can get an idea of what products have the most sales, what products have so here we could sort this. If we go here, we could sort it by, we'll do descending by sales. So we can do a little sort here. Okay. So now I have the top, see it resorts it. So now I have the top, it changes the chart is dynamic, so it changes the chart too. So I can talk about what products sell the most, what products sell the least. I can look at the costs. I could even throw in perhaps, this is a pivot table, so let me move this chart. I can actually put in a calculated field here, so I could say, let's see, let's just call this, what are the profits? Gross profit. This is for financial analysis now, and I could do the gross profit percent. So I could actually put a couple of new columns here, and I could say, let me see, sales dollars minus costs would be my profit. Click that down. See, that doesn't work now. See, it's just doing the same number every cell. So I think what I have to do for a pivot table is I'm going to have to go into the pivot table and insert a calculated field. So I'm going to insert a calculated field here. I'm going to call this gross profit. And the calculation is going to be sales dollars minus cost. So now I have that field. So that's a lot better, a lot faster too. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to, while I have the pivot table open, I'm going to go to the pivot table analyze, insert a field, another calculated field. I'm going to call this gross profit percent. And this formula is going to be the gross profit divided by the sales dollars. This will give me a percentage, but I have to format that into percent. And you'll see that by and large, all those percents are the same. And it looks like, okay. So that didn't tell us too much. Well, it does tell us that the gross profit is the same on all the products, but of course, which means the more you sell, the more profits you make. And then this could be done with the territories as well. So here, insert a calculated field. We do gross profit. Again, actually we have gross profit here. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to calculate it. Which is going to be the sales dollars minus the cost. So we can insert the profits here, and then another calculated field in here. Profit. Let's call it profit percent. Here we take the sum of the profits divided by sales dollars, and then again Let's format this as a percentage. Okay. So no surprise here, the 60%. But now I have the profits. So again, and you could also, I mean, for a table this small, you could take this and you can put this in the executive summary also. And so just pay special, values and number formatting. So I have a little table here now. If I want to talk about, so I should put some borders here. And maybe I wonder if this is a good thing to do also, is label your table. So here I could go like this, and I could say merge and center this into one box. I'll put a border around it. Okay, I could call this table 1. And this could, you can also relabel these chart 3, chart 2, chart 1. So this way, when you refer to them, so now they're a little bit better organized, and keep this with the same nomenclature. Maybe I want to make this a little bit bigger. Red. Nope. This back to black. We don't want to shade the area here. Give a little color to this. So you want to format, you don't want to just leave your charts looking ugly. You want to format the table, rather you want to format them a little bit. Maybe I want to put a color here. Okay. Okay. So now in the financial analysis, you're going to talk about which state has the most sales, has the most profits, the most costs. Maybe some states are, so you just want to kind of reiterate the facts of the case, the financial facts of the case of what you uncovered with the sales, the costs, the dollars, to tell a story of analyze what's happened. Like what is happening here. You could talk about how the profit margins are all the same. Maybe they, just as a fact. So you just kind of want to reiterate the facts of the, and it's actually, this chart actually put the profits in there too. It reworked this chart. You'll notice on the executive summary page, since I copied it, it's dynamically linked. So it updated this chart as well, which is pretty cool. So in the financial analysis section, you want to look at the profits, the sales, the costs. Is it, just kind of reiterating, stating the facts that you've uncovered by organizing the sales. So you would talk about, the sales of the different states, and so these are in alphabetical order, but you can also easily, if you go back here on this table, you could highlight this area, and then you could do data sort, and you could sort on the sales. So now you can reorder them, so you would have sales from top to bottom. So let's reset this. Sort, and we want to sort from largest to smallest. Okay. Sort by, take the headers off, and we're going to sort by column C. Okay, so now we have New Mexico is the highest sales, and Colorado is the lowest sales. And the profits are corresponding because we have the same profit margin. So these are just different things that you can talk about in the financial analysis, but then in the recommendation section, you're going to write about, probably should put a semicolon here. In the recommendation section, you are going to bring up things that you might have noticed that you should recommend that the company could improve upon. So one thing you could say is maybe suggest that they expand their territories to other states. So they only have about 11 states here. Why not expand these products into 11 other states? And then maybe look at the items that they're selling and look at the total sales dollars of these items and get a better idea. Let's see, here's the territory pivot table, product pivot table. Okay, so maybe focus more on these heavily selling products. They seem to be selling very well. Maybe some suggestions would be increase the marketing or advertising of some of the products they're not selling as well. Maybe talk about the strategy that you could increase, maybe change some of the pricing. So some of the products that are doing very well, maybe we can increase the price of those, decrease the price of the products that aren't selling as well. Just some general recommendations or strategies that you're noticing that would basically underline that you want this company to increase profits and increase sales. So this would just be using general basic knowledge based on the data that you received to understand how to improve the company's sales and profits moving forward. So these would be generally business ideas you have based on those numbers. You know, expanding the territories, maybe expanding their product lines, a different pricing strategy. So these are all real-world business recommendations that you can make. There's no set list of recommendations we're looking for you, but I'm looking for you to use your business knowledge. You're mostly seniors in a business school, so you have taken marketing and accounting and finance and a lot of different courses that should help you to understand what this business could do to improve their business. So the recommendation is all about what the company can be doing forward to make the company stronger and more profitable, while the financial analysis section is about about you interpreting the data that is in this spreadsheet and giving a quick summary of the data, so a financial executive can just read over your executive summary and get a better idea of what's happening here, because they don't have the time to go into each individual spreadsheet and analyze the data. That's your job. So once you analyze the data, you need to summarize it. So the introduction is telling me what steps you took to organize the data, what Excel functions you used. The financial analysis is telling me what have you discovered, what financial information that's significant that you can summarize. And in the financial analysis area, you should be referring to the charts and tables. When you're trying to talk about profits and sales and different things, refer to the charts and tables you've created. The recommendations about what can the company do moving forward to improve the company's situation. Okay. And that would be the executive summary. And this is the most heavily graded area, is this executive summary page has the highest amount of grades on it. So you want to make sure that you review that quite closely. Okay. And there's a rubric that I use on how I grade your projects. So you should look over that rubric to get a better idea of what I'm looking for when I'm going to grade your project, your case study. Okay, that's enough for this lecture. I hope you found this helpful. And remember, you don't have to do it 100% of the way that I did it. This is just an example of how I would solve the case. There is not looking for one definitive way of doing it. I'm just going to give you a layout of how this case can be solved. And you can follow what I did step by step if you like, or you can be creative and innovative and maybe change and reorganize some things and make it even better. Okay, thanks for your time. Take care.